key hills of ancient Judah seemed an unlikely place for history to change. Around the beginning of the first millennium BC, the Kingdom of Israel stood at a crossroads. The nation had achieved what previous generations could only imagine. It had united under a single king, but that unity was beginning to fracture. King Saul, Israel's first monarch, had once inspired hope. He was taller than anyone else in the land, a formidable warrior chosen during a time of crisis. Yet years of military victories had slowly given way to insecurity, impulsive decisions, and a growing distance from the God whom Israel believed had established the kingdom. According to the biblical books of Samuel, the prophet Samuel received a startling command. The future of Israel would no longer rest with Saul. Instead, it would begin in the most unexpected place imaginable. Not inside a palace, not within the ranks of Israel's generals, but among the sheep. Far south of Saul's capital lay the small town of Bethlehem, a quiet settlement surrounded by rugged hills and grazing land. It was there that Jesse, a respected elder, lived with his family. Samuel arrived quietly. The prophet's presence immediately unsettled the town's elders. In an age marked by frequent conflict, the arrival of God's chief prophet often signaled judgment or war. Instead, Samuel announced a sacrifice. Then came an unusual request. Jesse was asked to present his sons. One by one, they appeared. The eldest, Eliab, possessed the appearance of a leader, strong, confident, and impressive. He seemed an obvious choice, but Samuel rejected him. The next son stepped forward, then another, and another. Each was refused. 7 sons stood before the prophet. 7 times, the answer was no. Confused, Samuel turned to Jesse. "Are these all your sons?" Jesse hesitated. One remained, the youngest. He had not even been invited. He was out in the fields, tending sheep. In the culture of ancient Israel, shepherding was hard, lonely work, usually assigned to the youngest member of the family. It demanded long days in isolation, protecting vulnerable flocks from predators and thieves across rocky wilderness. No one expected greatness from a shepherd. David was summoned from the fields. The biblical account describes him as youthful, healthy, and striking in appearance. The moment Samuel saw him, everything changed. The prophet anointed David with oil, a symbolic act reserved for kings. Yet there was one extraordinary complication. Israel already had a king. David returned to his sheep. Nothing changed, or at least nothing appeared to. Years would pass before anyone else understood what had happened that day in Bethlehem. While David watched sheep beneath open skies, King Saul's condition deteriorated. The biblical narrative describes Saul suffering periods of emotional torment. His servants searched for someone capable of calming the troubled king through music. Their recommendation surprised everyone: a young shepherd from Bethlehem. David entered the royal court carrying not a sword, but a harp. He played before Israel's king, easing Saul's troubled mind. Neither man yet realized that history had already bound their futures together. David was now living between 2 worlds. One day, tending sheep. Another, serving inside the royal palace. He observed generals, military campaigns, and royal politics from close quarters, while remaining almost invisible. It became an education no prince could have received. Then came the crisis that would make his name known across the ancient Near East. Israel's greatest enemy had returned, the Philistines. Unlike the scattered tribes surrounding Israel, the Philistines possessed organized city-states along the Mediterranean coast. Archaeological discoveries reveal advanced metallurgy, fortified cities, and sophisticated military technology. Their warriors carried iron weapons at a time when iron remained relatively scarce. Once again, the 2 armies gathered for battle. They faced each other across the Valley of Elah, southwest of Jerusalem. The landscape itself created a stalemate. Steep hills rose on both sides. A broad valley separated the opposing forces. Whoever descended first would surrender the tactical advantage. Days stretched into weeks. Neither army moved. Then the Philistines proposed an alternative. Instead of thousands dying in open battle, one champion would decide the outcome. His name was Goliath. The Bible describes him as an enormous warrior from Gath, equipped with bronze armor, a massive spear, and exceptional combat experience. Although scholars continue to debate the exact ancient measurements used in the text, every surviving tradition agrees on one point. Goliath towered above ordinary soldiers. Each morning and each evening, he stepped into the valley. His challenge echoed across the hills. "Choose one man. Let him fight me. If I fall, the Philistines will serve Israel. If your champion falls, Israel will become our servants. 40 days passed. No one accepted. Even Saul, once Israel's bravest warrior, remained inside camp. Fear settled over the army. Back in Bethlehem, life continued. Jesse sent David to deliver food to his older brothers serving on the battlefield. The journey seemed ordinary. It would become one of history's most famous walks. As David approached Israel's camp, soldiers suddenly rushed toward the battle lines. Across the valley stood Goliath. Again, the giant shouted his challenge. Again, the Israelites retreated. David was stunned. He asked why no one answered. His brothers dismissed him. They accused him of arrogance and curiosity. Go back to your sheep. But David kept asking questions. Soon, word reached Saul. The young shepherd requested an audience with the king. Inside the royal tent, David made an astonishing offer. He would fight Goliath. Saul could hardly believe what he was hearing. David was little more than a youth. Goliath had spent a lifetime as a warrior. The odds bordered on the impossible. David answered with experiences almost no one else knew. While protecting his father's sheep, predators had attacked the flock. According to the biblical account, he had confronted lions and bears to rescue helpless animals. The same God who had delivered him then would deliver him now. Saul reluctantly agreed. Before David departed, the king attempted to dress him in royal armor, helmet, breastplate, sword. David tried to move. He could barely walk. The equipment belonged to another kind of warrior. He removed it all. Instead, he carried only what he knew: his shepherd's staff, his sling, and 5 smooth stones gathered from the nearby stream. Modern experiments have shown that ancient slings were far more dangerous than many imagine. In skilled hands, a stone launched from a sling could travel at remarkable speed with devastating force. Across the valley, Goliath watched his opponent approach. Then he laughed. The Philistine giant expected a seasoned soldier. Instead, he saw a shepherd carrying no armor, no spear, no sword, only a stick. The insult enraged him. The biblical account records Goliath cursing David and promising to leave his body for the birds and wild animals. David answered with words remembered for nearly 3,000 years. You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord. The contrast could not have been greater. On one side, the most heavily armed warrior on the battlefield. On the other, a shepherd carrying stones. Then everything happened in seconds. David ran forward, not away, toward the giant. His sling began to spin faster, faster. Then he released. The stone flew directly toward Goliath. It struck his forehead. The giant collapsed face first onto the ground. Silence. Then shock. David rushed forward, using Goliath's own sword. He killed the fallen champion. The Philistine army broke ranks. Panic spread. Their unbeatable warrior was dead. Israel surged forward. The battle became a rout. The Philistines fled toward their cities. Against every expectation, the valley that had witnessed weeks of fear became the site of Israel's greatest victory. David returned, carrying the giant's weapons. His name spread rapidly throughout Israel. Songs began to circulate, celebrating the young hero. For ordinary people, David represented courage, overcoming impossible odds. But inside the royal palace, something else had begun. Saul watched the celebrations carefully. The shepherd who had once soothed the king with music was now the nation's newest military hero. The balance of power had shifted. The anointing in Bethlehem, hidden from almost everyone, had taken its first visible step towards fulfillment. Yet David had not become king, not even close. Instead, victory would open the door to years of danger, unlike anything he had yet experienced. The greatest battle of David's life had not been against Goliath. It would be against the king he had just saved. The road from shepherd to Israel's greatest king was only beginning. The core narrative of David's early life is preserved in the biblical books of 1 Samuel, chapters 16 to 17. Among the earliest literary sources for Israel's monarchy. While historians continue to debate specific details, particularly surrounding Goliath's exact height and aspects of the battle, the existence of a Davidic royal dynasty receives important archaeological support from the Telephone Dan Stele, a 9th century BC Aramean inscription referring to the House of David. Combined with the broader archaeological record of Iron Age Judah and Philistine settlements, these sources place David within a genuine historical setting. Even where individual events remain matters of historical and theological interpretation,